Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. My name is Masterson, and as a longtime fan of Monster Hunter and a longtime friend of Hijinks, I thought why not take a break from the Monster Hunter content on this channel? And by that, I mean the gameplay videos, and actually teach you some how-tos to play the game in anticipation for the new expansion Sunbreak that is dropping on the 30th. So I thought the best place to start is to introduce all the weapons in the game. Now each weapon can be extremely complex, as they go from being just, oh, I want to choose a long sword, or I want to choose a giant big sword to bust the monster's head open. Each functions with its own individual class, like in D&D. And then within each weapon, there are different play styles you can choose that will change your moveset. There are 3 types of main bow. I'm not going to go too deep into them. First off, we have the spread bow. And as you can see, it's doing multiple different arrows amongst a wide array. Sure, they do small damage, but if you beef them up enough, you can have a wider range of damage. Next, let's move on to the second. Let's move on to one of my personal favorites when it comes to the bow. The pierce damage. Now the thing about the pierce damage bow it will send one major arrow that will go through the entire monster, regardless if it's going to bounce off or not. It's going to actually shoot straight through the monster, doing a ton of damage. It will do one on the outside, one even bigger one inside the monster, and then on the outside, on the other end, it's going to do a smaller amount of damage equal to your first shot. It's perfect for monsters with hides that are extremely weak. Now finally, we have the rapid bow. Now these are for the quick players. It allows you to follow quick, fast volleys of arrows at. As fast as you want. It's perfect for a rapid play style. Now some bows will have a combination of all 3 types. I will charge it up, charge, and my bow just went to from a rapid type to a spread type. Now the whole gist of the bow is that if you'll see on the right screen, there are different types of ammo. And each bow has different ammo you can use. This one has exhaust ammo, which basically exhausts the monster, so they get tired and allowing you to hit them more. Everything from blast coatings to do blast damage, elemental damages, paralysis, sleep. You can play with it however you want. Now that's enough with the bow. Let me move on to the second ranged weapon, the heavy bow gun. Now when you talk about the heavy bow gun, they all have their own different specialties. But I think it's best to just explain it as a giant heavy cannon you can just fire and fire with. And just like the last one, there are different types of ammo you can choose from. Same description as the last. The thing about this one is you can fire one gigantic blast out of this one. They're really good support weapons from a distance, but you're extremely slow while using it. Now, let's say you want to use a gun but you want to be more mobile. Well, let's switch to something a little more powerful, but still movable. That's where the light bowgun comes in. It allows you to easily fire just like the heavy bowgun, except there's more degree of dodging. I can fire shots, even though I still have to reload, but I can move around as much as I want. Now, I'm not the biggest expert on any of the guns. I'm more of an expert on the bow. But the thing about the guns is, when you look at them, they have deviations, recoil, and reload. So if I look at this one, it has a left-right severe deviation. That means it's going to curve to the left and to the right. We can have one with no deviation, like this one right here. And this will fire straight forward without a single problem. So it's good to pay attention to what type of weapon you have. Next, let's move on to the tentacle weapons. First off, everyone's favorite complicated one, the charge blade. I'll pick one I really like. The charge blade is one of the most complicated weapons, and anyone who can learn it, I greatly appreciate them. It looks like a normal sword and shield, but the whole premise of it is that by hitting with the sword, you're able to charge up these files you see on the left top screen, and then you put them either into the shield or the axe. And then you transform into a giant axe when you combine both of them, and allow you to release a giant burst of damage based on how many files you filled up. Extremely technical to learn how to use, but when you can see it finally go off, it's extremely satisfying. Now I will have to say, with every weapon, either you go with a basic raw damage weapon or you could go with elemental. But I'm never an elemental type of person, because the thing about elemental is it really goes with the type of monster you're facing, because every monster has a different elemental weakness. Next, the switch axe. The switch axe is kind of on the main vein of the last one, although it's a little slower. The whole objective is to keep attacking with the axe, and then when you build up your meter enough, you switch it into sword mode, and then you can fire a giant blast into the monster of the energy you've stored up. Like this. It's great for doing elemental status damage to your opponent. Like right now, I'm doing blast. I used to play this a lot in the 3rd generation before my favorite weapon, which I'll explain next, comes along. But in all honesty, a little too slow for me, but everyone has their own different playstyle. Next, I have to talk about it. You saw it in the first video on the channel. Let's talk about the insect glaive. I'm going to pick my favorite. This is the last of the technical weapons because it's quite the peculiar one. This one allows you to have a little buddy that's called the Kinsect. It's a little insect buddy you can control at will. Everything from leaving clouds of dust that will heal you, to clouds of dust that will cause explosive damage if you hit. But the main part of him is the ability to get what's called extract from the monster. There are 3 types: white, orange, and red. The thing about it is, if you get red and white, it will boost your attack damage. If you get orange and white, it will boost your defense. If you get all 3, it will basically give you a giant buff that will basically allow you to possibly stay in the air for long periods of time, and also makes you immune to the monster's roars, which is a huge blessing. I'm probably going to stop soon with this weapon because I could play all day. This has always been my favorite weapon because flying in the sky is just one of the most addictive things, and how it moves is so fast and so beautiful. This might end up being a really long video, but it's worth it to learn every single weapon. Next, let's go into the basic weapons. The most basic of all weapons. The hammer. The thing about the hammer is that it's a hammer. The amount of concussive damage it can do to a monster is insane. It's very slow, very cumbersome, but you can do a lot of damage, and you can even KO and knock out the monster and make it unconscious for a few minutes. Other than that, there's not much to describe beyond it. I'm not the biggest expert on it. But if you really want to bash that monster's head in, with certain monsters you can even break off parts of their head using only the hammer, or any blunt type weapon. Next, let's take it to a weird place, to a fan favorite. This is the hunting horn. Now the thing about the hunting horn is it's basically the hammer, except as you're attacking, if you see on the left screen, I'm playing random notes. Now each hunting horn has different types of notes with different benefits. And what do they do? Well, right now, my sharpness will reduce less. I can even do one like this, reducing stamina. And these effects apply your entire party. You are basically a giant hammer wielder that's also a bard. By doing this, you can greatly improve any stats you want of your teammates while in battle. While it's not the easiest to use while single player, it is great to have one on your team. Next, let's go for one that is pretty self-explanatory in my opinion. The lance. Like most medieval lances, it's a lance, except it also comes with a sword, with a shield, allowing you to easily block. The thing about this weapon is it allows you to, let me guard. If I guard, I can guard and I can thrust. I can basically stay right up to the monster, and if you build your stats correctly, you can basically dodge any attacks. Even a fire breath, you could stand with your shield like this in front of a monster's fire breath, and you could literally just keep poking the monster, poking and poking and poking and poking, while your shield's up over and over and over. You relentlessly stay on the monster. Next, let's move on to its strange counterpart, the gun lance. And you're like, what makes this one a strange counterpart? Just like the hunting horn, it's a lance. But with a gun. So if you want an extra kick of damage, it's right there for you, except you have to keep an eye and reload your weapons. But, let me see, how do I reload? I always forget how to. Quick reload. Okay, there we go. It's quite the fun little nifty tool if you just want to have some fun. You can literally, like the last one, get up close to the monster and just blow its brains out. I'm sorry to be so rude with that term, but It really is one that you can go crazy with. Next, let's move on to a cult classic, the Great Sword. So the thing about the Great Sword, it's a giant sword. I've seen some of the biggest damage in the entire game from this weapon. It's extremely cumbersome. You're easy to be open for the monster's attacks. You can, however, block any incoming attack, as long as your defense is the best. But the thing about this is it allows you to easily deal a massive damage. I've seen people do 1,000 damage with just one swing. Charge up your weapon and do a massive amount of damage. The only problem is you have to learn the monster's patterns because of how slow you are. Next, let's move on to my personal favorite, which you've seen many times, the Sword and Shield. It's like the Charge Blade, except it doesn't transform, but the movability is amazing with this. It allows you to easily do a great amount of elemental status damage. It does small hits, but if you build it right, it can do amazing things. I can just stand here, I can whack them while I'm blocking. The other thing that's great about this is if you have any healing items, it's one of the very few weapons that you can put your shield out and you can drink a potion to heal yourself while your shield is out. Next, let's move on to everyone's favorite anime weapon, the dual blades. And what do I mean by anime weapon? It's basically an anime weapon. How it functions is two small swords. They don't do a lot of damage, but they're perfect for damage per second. The amount of damage you can do even with small amounts of damage you can see with small blows. So the main purpose of it is you activate what's called your demon mode. You attack until your gauge on the left is filled out. Oh, you see? I can go over the spine with demon mode. I can basically be a Beyblade. And once it's filled, you deactivate the mode, and then your attack is buffed for a short period of time, and you can still be in demon mode because that meter's filled. You can actually go down the entire spine of a monster with these, and it's extremely hilarious to do. So, we have one more weapon left. And I was saving this for last because it's extremely, not just powerful, but it's extremely confusing to use sometimes. So I need to change the settings of the arena right now. Training options. There we go. This guy's gonna stomp me like crazy. So the thing about it is, yes, it's a long sword. I'm not the best when it comes to this weapon, but the whole purpose is to counterattack. Give me a second while I do one more quick setting. The whole purpose, and I'm not the most skilled, but it is the most broken weapon. Because the whole purpose is you can basically Yeah, I'm not the most skilled. It takes a lot of skill to practice. But if you do it properly, you can do perfect counterattacks. I've seen someone stand at the front of a monster, a blast has gone through, and in like 2 seconds they end up at the other end of the monster doing critical damage to them. Like I said, I'm not the most skilled. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed the video. Next week, I will be back with part 2. And part 2, I think I'm going to just do the basics on how damage, defense, and statistics work in Monster Hunter, and your stats and elemental resistances. I hope you look forward to it next time. I sure will. I think I'm starting to... Yeah. A lot of this is literally about anime sheathing your sword, and as soon as the monster attacks... How do I do the sheath combo? I'm still trying to figure that out. Okay, let me try one more thing and then I'm cutting this. So I do... Hold it. Wait for him to stop. X. C, B... Wait for it. Ah, see, I missed it. Let me do X, B... Stay away from him. X, Z, B... Yeah. I'm not the biggest expert. But you know what? We all take time to learn. And the thing about this weapon, and all the weapons, is that they're different play styles you can use. And when the new expansion comes up, there'll be upwards of, I believe it's 4 play styles you can choose. So until next time, friends, keep hunting, and don't be afraid to try any weapon, because any weapon may seem simple on the surface, but you can become an expert in no time.